What if I told you the Second World War was fought not just with bullets and bombs, but with inflatable rubber tanks, a dead body carrying a briefcase of lies, and a 500-pound beer-drinking bear? Welcome to 10-Minute History. I'm your host, Jake Sullivan, and today we're peeling back the familiar narrative of World War II to explore its secret history, a bizarre and brilliant shadow war fought with imagination, deception, and breathtaking audacity. When we think of the war, we picture the grand battles of Stalingrad or D-Day. But beneath that surface lies a world where armies were made of rubber, where spies were failed chicken farmers, and where the most effective weapon was a well-told lie. This is the story of the war's strangest tales. Let's begin in the summer of 1944 as Allied forces pushed their way through France. To fool the formidable German war machine, the U.S. Army deployed one of its most secret and creative units, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, better known as the Ghost Army. This was a force of just over 1,000 men, but their job was to impersonate entire divisions, some 20 times their size. And their recruits weren't hardened commandos. They were artists, sound engineers, architects, and actors, pulled from art schools and Hollywood sound stages. Their arsenal was pure theater. The visual deception team used hundreds of inflatable rubber tanks, artillery, and trucks. A 90-pound rubber Sherman tank could be inflated in minutes and, from the air, looked just like the real 35-ton machine. 4 men could pick one up and move it. They even created fake tank tracks with bulldozers and looped truck convoys to simulate the movement of thousands of men. Then there was the sonic deception team. Using powerful speakers mounted on half-tracks, they could blast the recorded sounds of an entire armored division up to 15 miles away. Imagine being a German soldier, hearing the rumble of thousands of tanks gathering in the dark, when in reality it was just a few guys with a wire recorder. The final layer was spoof radio, where expert operators mimicked the unique radio traffic of the divisions they were impersonating, fooling German intelligence into believing a massive force was right where the Ghost Army wanted them to think it was. Their masterpiece was Operation Viersen in March of 1945. The U.S. Ninth Army needed to cross the heavily defended Rhine River. To draw the enemy away, the Ghost Army staged a massive fake crossing 10 miles to the south. They deployed over 600 inflatables and broadcast the sounds of bridge construction all night. The deception was so total that the German High Command diverted an entire panzer division to counter the Phantom invasion. When the real crossing happened, resistance was drastically lighter than expected. It's estimated the Ghost Army's illusion saved up to 30,000 American lives during the war, proving that sometimes creativity is the most powerful weapon of all. But if faking an entire army with rubber and sound was impressive, imagine convincing Hitler himself with just one man, who was already dead. This brings us to 1943 and Operation Mincemeat. The Allies planned to invade Sicily, but its strategic importance was so obvious that it was becoming a fortress. They had to trick the Axis into thinking the real attack was coming somewhere else. The plan, devised by a secret MI5 committee, was both macabre and brilliant. They would use a corpse carrying fake top-secret documents and have it wash ashore in neutral Spain, a known hotbed for German spies. The first ghoulish task was finding a body. They found their man who never was in Glyndwr Michael, a homeless man who had died in London with no known family. Next, they gave him a new life. He became Acting Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. The deception team built his identity with obsessive detail. They filled his pockets with wallet litter, ticket stubs from a London show, a bill from his club, an angry letter from his bank manager about an overdraft, and even a photo and love letters from his fictional fiancée Pam. The centerpiece was a briefcase chained to his wrist. Inside was a personal letter from a top British general to a commander in North Africa, which casually mentioned that the upcoming Allied invasion would target Greece and Sardinia, with Sicily being merely a feint. On April 30, 1943, the British submarine HMS Seraph slipped the body of Major Martin into the waters off the coast of Spain. It was found by a fisherman, and just as planned, the Spanish authorities shared the documents with the local German Abwehr agent. The intelligence was rushed to Berlin. The meticulous details, the personal letters, The frantic, secret telegrams from the British demanding the briefcase back. It was all too perfect. Hitler was completely convinced. He ordered entire panzer divisions to be moved away from Sicily to reinforce Greece and Sardinia. When the Allies invaded Sicily on July 10th, they faced far weaker opposition than they should have. The operation was a stunning success. As Winston Churchill later cabled the Deception Committee in London, mincemeat swallowed whole. Deceiving the enemy with a body was one thing, but what about turning their own spies against them? This was the work of Britain's double-cross system, an MI5 operation that captured nearly every German agent sent to Britain and turned them into double agents. The greatest of them all was a man codenamed Garbo. His real name was Juan Pujol Garcia, a failed Spanish chicken farmer who hated fascists and communists equally. Initially rejected by the British as an unstable amateur, he decided to get hired by the Germans first. He convinced the Abwehr he was a pro-Nazi fanatic, and they sent him to spy on Britain. Except, Pujol never went to Britain. He moved to Lisbon, and using only a tourist guide, a map, and newsreels, he invented an entire network of 27 fictional subagents. He wrote fantastically detailed reports, filled with plausible-sounding information that was also riddled with hilarious errors, like claiming men in Glasgow would do anything for a liter of wine. Incredibly, the Germans loved it. They believed he was their best spy. After MI5 finally realized what was happening, they smuggled him into Britain and made him the star of the double-cross system. His masterpiece was Operation Fortitude, the grand deception to hide the D-Day landings. For months, Garbo and his imaginary network fed the Germans a stream of reports about a massive but entirely fake U.S. Army group building up in southeast England, preparing to invade the Pas de Calais. When the real landings began in Normandy on June 6, 1944, Garbo sent an urgent message claiming the Normandy attack was just a diversion. Hitler believed him. He kept his most powerful panzer divisions waiting in Calais for a main attack that never came. That delay was critical for the success of D-Day and saved thousands of Allied lives. For his services, the Germans awarded Garbo the Iron Cross. Months later, the British made him a member of the Order of the British Empire. He is one of the only people ever to be decorated by both sides in the war. While Britain mastered the art of the lie, America was exploring its own kind of bizarre warfare. Consider Project X-Ray, better known as the quote-quote bat bomb. The idea, which came from a Pennsylvania dentist, was to strap tiny, time-delayed incendiary bombs to millions of bats. The bats would be dropped in canisters over Japan's wooden cities. Upon release, they'd fly into the eaves and attics of buildings to roost. A short time later, their tiny bombs would detonate, starting thousands of simultaneous, hard-to-reach fires. The project received presidential approval and $2 million in funding. Scientists developed a tiny napalm bomb and a refrigerated canister to transport the hibernating bats. In a darkly ironic proof of concept, one test went horribly wrong when a number of armed bats were accidentally released and proceeded to burn down the entire Army airfield where they were being tested. The project was eventually canceled, overshadowed by the looming success of the Manhattan Project, but it stands as a wild example of the desperate search for a war-ending weapon. But not all of the war's strangest participants were tools of deception or destruction. Some were symbols of hope. Meet Wojtek, the soldier bear. In 1942, Polish soldiers of the Anders Army, themselves recently freed from Soviet gulags, found an orphaned Syrian brown bear cub in Iran. They named him Wojtek, meaning smiling warrior, and adopted him into their 22nd Artillery Supply Company. He grew up with the soldiers, wrestling with them, marching on his hind legs, and developing a love for beer, which he would gulp down from the bottle. When the company was set to ship out to Italy, British port authorities refused to allow a bear on board. So the soldiers came up with a brilliant solution. They officially enlisted him. Private Wojtek was given a rank, a service number, and a paybook. Faced with an official Polish soldier, the baffled British officer had no choice but to let him pass. During the brutal Battle of Monte Cassino, Wojtek famously helped his comrades by carrying 100-pound crates of artillery shells to the front lines, never dropping a single one. In recognition, the company adopted a new emblem, a bear carrying an artillery shell. After the war, Wojtek lived out his days at the Edinburgh Zoo, a beloved hero and a lasting symbol of the resilience and humanity found in the midst of war. The stories of the Ghost Army, Operation Mincemeat, Agent Garbo, and Wojtek the Bear show us a different side of World War II. They reveal a conflict fought not just on the battlefield, but in the minds of the enemy, a war of creativity, surreal improvisation, and profound humanity, reminding us that history is often far stranger and more fascinating than any fiction. So what are your thoughts on these incredible stories? Let us know down in the comments below. If you found this interesting or learned something new, please give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe to 10-Minute History for more deep dives. Thanks for listening.